I would like to welcome everyone back from executive session, and we'll reconvene here in open session. And I will notify that there were no votes taken in executive session, and I will consider a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
And we will vote via roll call.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayat,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sue Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
Aye.
Beautiful. Minutes are sealed. Moving on to item 4. Does anyone want to remove any items from the consent agenda? Items 4.1 through 4.5. If I hear no one asking to have items removed, we will vote to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? The consent agenda.
Right, we received an email in regards to 4.2. This says instruction request, but there was other correspondence into that.
Have any home instruction?
I believe that has to do.
Yeah, correspondence right there.
Yeah, that was for request from a member of the public to submit a comment to the committee as part of public comment, which this committee allows to have comments emailed. It's not, I don't believe it's considered as part of correspondence. So when this refers to home instruction requests, that's another type of correspondence that was provided in your packet.
I believe that the email you're speaking of is referring to item 10.4.
Right.
Correct. And we will submit that email into the minutes, into the record. But regarding the consent agenda, do we have anything that we would like to remove? And if not, does anyone have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We will vote via roll call.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayat,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
Aye.
Beautiful. Moving on to item 5, the opening of the 2023-2024 school year. I'll turn it over to Principal McKinnon.
Thank you, Chairperson Audi. Yeah, I've got a little, just waiting.
Thank you for burning the midnight oil a few days this week. I keep seeing you after hours.
So I apologize. I don't have any pictures, which is probably good. It'll probably expedite this whole process. I will say this before I begin talking about some of the new things we have this year. As you know, the start of the school year with the heat and humidity around this place has been rather difficult for our staff and students here at school. You know, and obviously there's places like our library and the gym and the main office and the nurse's office and my office that do have some AC. But I have to say this, our kids last week performed remarkably with the heat and humidity. You didn't hear a boo from them. They continued their work. You could see them coming in from recess, sweaty and heated up, particularly on Tuesday of last week. We made the decision Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to take the recesses and do them in the gymnasium where there was air conditioning because of the heat and humidity. And it paid dividends. We also took our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders after their lunches and went in there for advisory. Also to kind of cool off because it was rather difficult in the building last week. It seems like things are starting to break and hopefully, next week we can get to more fall weather. A couple of things that are new this year. One of the big things that a group of our leadership team took part in is kind of a new schedule, excuse me, particularly for our 6, 7, and 8. If you remember going back to your middle school, you probably had the same class at the same time every day. And what we talked about to get the best out of the kids is to try and rotate that schedule. So in our 7th and 8th grade, you don't have the same ELA class at the same time every day. Sometimes it'll be the last period of the day. The next day it could be the first period of the day. So it is rotating. I think that's certainly best for our students. And I think the staff is also appreciative of it because it mixes things up a little bit. You get the best, morning, we know is certainly the best time for students to give it their best. And for the most part, that's able to rotate into a morning class every now and then. It also helps us with our professional learning communities. We have been able to build the communities where our 6th and 7th, 8th grade teachers are all able to meet and to vertically align some of the content some of the connections there, which is certainly needed for the IB. With that, also in sixth, seventh, eighth grade, we've changed a little bit of the advisory and how it runs. We have brought all of our, when I say all of our teachers, our specialists, physical education, library, music, art, all of those teachers are responsible for a small group of kids, rather than, one teacher with Mary Elizabeth pushing into those classrooms. So advisory it's a time period where students are able to make connections with adults. And with those connections, certainly is going to, it has been shown that, the behaviors will improve, and academics will improve. So we've broken that down into much smaller units, better connections, better results. Mr. Lee Torres, our social studies teacher, is going to be beginning a student government. He has been talking to his social studies class and civics in both the seventh and eighth grade. Miss Nicole Gay, our sixth grade social studies teacher, has been speaking to the sixth grade. But what it's going to look like is there's going to be a homeroom representative from each sixth grade, seventh grade, and each eighth grade classroom. And then from there, students can also run for president, although it's been determined already in their constitution that the president will be somebody in the eighth grade. But there'll be a vice president in the seventh grade and a vice president for the sixth grade. So he's working those things out. They're going to be voting on that, I believe, next Friday. The kids will have an opportunity next week to actually have a little bit of, some debate and be able to speak, for votes. We're really looking forward to it. I'm going to jump ahead to our open house was last night, as many of our parents were here. It well attended, good opportunity for our parents to meet the classroom teachers to meet the parents. Just go over expectations, some of the expectations for the classroom, homework, so on and so forth. But it was a good night last night. Fall athletics has started on Monday of this week with soccer. We run soccer on Monday, Thursdays, and cross country on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And we don't have complete numbers yet. I'm going to say there's probably upwards of 35 students who are involved, 35, 40 students, grades 5 through 8 that are involved. There might be a little bit more. We don't have the final numbers because all that information is coming into us. And finally, I had the unique opportunity to sit at an educational conference back in June and hear a gentleman talk. His name is Steve Pemberton. And as I'm listening to him talk and I'm watching his presentation, I'm saying to myself, this guy has a connection to this area. And sure enough, he was from New Bedford, Massachusetts. An absolute fantastic story that he told of perseverance and how the people in his life, the educators in his life, and others who helped him when he was at a crossroads. And he wrote a book. He's actually, he's a CEO of several big corporations. He's on the governing board, the board of trustees at Boston College. He wrote a book, The Lighthouse Effect, and one of the things that Dr. Mitchell, was able to put forward, we bought a book for every teacher in the building, to read, and many of them have picked it up and have finished it in a weekend. And as you're reading it, you're reading about stories that are taking place 10, 15 miles from here. Real neat. But it's more of an inspirational type thing for our teachers, that they are lighthouses, for people looking for direction.
That's all. You included the quote in your principal's message, one of the quotes from the book.
Yeah.
About being the lighthouse and then not only guiding, but also being the light.
Being the light.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's so well done.
Great story.
It really is.
That is it.
Awesome, Principal McKinnon.
Yeah.
Any questions for Principal McKinnon? Thank you. Moving right along, item 6, superintendent report. We'll be talking about the art room and STEM project. Mr. DeLeo is very excited about that.
Oh, you told me you were up there last night.
Yes, making my rounds.
So
Which one you want?
the
Blueprints?
furniture.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Stillwater Construction is our general contractor for that STEM room. We're calling it the STEAM room, but that can be a little confusing. It's science, technology, engineering, art, and math, but that's the STEAM piece. So it's not a STEAM room like you find at the gym. And so.
Thank you for
Kenny
being clear.
Mr. Kenny was on site last week. He was a subcontract. He was working for the general contractor in 2011, 2012. Roger will remember that when the school's major renovation took place. And then he struck out on his own. He's on the MPA, the master price agreement, and he owns the company and he got the bid. Yeah, so he was here on site and he went to town hall to start the permitting process. And then from there, he and a co-worker went to Commons Lunch. He hadn't been there in 10 or 11 years and they enjoyed their meal. And he's dropping materials off starting this Friday, at which time I will have the schedule, the construction schedule, and the criminal background checks on his workers and all the subcontractors. And he thinks it's going to be a pretty short job. There is no demo. There's nothing to crack down and haul away. So that's good. And so I do want to show you with the $25,000 STEM furniture grant, some of the furnishings that we will have in there. All right, so we're going to have a couple of these and keep on going. And then a couple of those that are writable, etc. With the chairs right here. We're going to put about 26 chairs altogether, all different types of seats. We're also going to have those rocker ots, they're rocker ottomans, and around a small table like that for kind of a sensory thing for some of the children. Keep on going, thank you. One setup like that with 4 seats around and it goes around and you've got some blackboards there and whiteboards as well. So we're going to have, this is not, an actual depiction. It's sort of a quick mock-up. And so it doesn't quite fit with that room. It sort of takes over both, but this is from the designer from WB Mason. So it's going to be one of our first 21st century learning spaces. It's going to look better than that, but that's where we are. And maybe go to the next. I think you all know that you could go to the district website, the section, and then go down to finances, and then you can find everything you need there, including everything that has to do with this particular project. Keep on going. And then the second document,
The specs,
the specs.
all of the specs.
So we have I think one of the most thorough financial sections, finances sections on our website. One of the most thorough ones for a small district that I've seen in the state. So I'm pretty happy. Can we sort of go back to how they can find some of this information under finances? Go to lcsd.k12.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. District. Jonathan knows I love working on the website. I do a lot of my own work on it. Then he has to circle back and fix it. But anyway, so that's our current request for proposals. I have a couple there. So does Jonathan. And then you just click that link and you can go to everything that has to do with the art room, STEM room, and those two major documents there from our architect and architectural firm. So pretty transparent, and I'll keep you up to date. Most of the work will be done before school, after school. Some of the work can be done during school, some of the softer work. And that's where we are. We're very excited.
Thank you, Superintendent. Right, item 7, Mr. McNamee, Finance Report.
So what I did report on, this will probably be the last time we'll report on the 6/30/23 financials. The auditors will be coming in probably in, I think, a couple of weeks. So based on, I've been going through and reconciling accounts. So what we're showing here, which has an excess of revenues over expenses for FY23 of 163, it'll be down roughly about 120 after some adjustments. So that should be the final number that we're looking at. The audit will take place, and I think it'll go a lot smoother this year than it had in last year. Last year, we had a number of extensions, which we're hoping to avoid this year. The town was backlogged because of changes in personnel and whatnot. So I anticipate that the schedule would be that we would have a final report from the auditor sometime in December. It's due to the Auditor General by the end of December. So I'm anticipating that we'll probably have that on time this year.
Excellent.
And at next meeting, I'll start reporting on the FY24, looking at the comparison of the budget and doing some preliminary projections to see where we stand.
Excellent.
Obviously, this year was a pretty good year, especially with the savings that we had on the tuition side. We had about $115,000 in savings because of the enrollment drop at Portsmouth High School, offset with some of the increases at the career and technical. And our special education out of district was lower than we had anticipated. So there's additional $56,000 savings there. So we had some substantial savings. Often very difficult to kind of estimate those numbers. But we haven't been contacted by the budget board to start that process again. So we're going to be back into it very shortly and looking at, enrollments and starting to put the FY25 budget together. We are this year, certainly everybody knows we have a new special ed department. So that's going to have somewhat of an impact as we move forward. Things will start to come up that, weren't initially anticipated, probably built into the course that we had budgeted for based on what we were paying at the collaborative. So I'm not anticipating that we'll have a significant increase in expenses over what we had budgeted. The dissolution of the collaborative is going a little bit slower than I think we had anticipated. So hopefully we'll have those numbers. I'm hoping that we have the final numbers probably by the end of December as well. So we can see where we stand in that process.
Okay. Question. It notes that you have to submit to the state and the Auditor General. Does that feedback come to both us and the town budget committee? Or do we have to then present to the town budget committee, or is that something that's all encompassing?
So those are the town financial statements, which include the accounts of the school department. So we basically feed into to the town's financials, and so they started to do preliminary audit work. So I'm anticipating that they should be on target to meet those goals. But they basically take both the town and the school and also the ag trust and kind of combine those into the
And do a
full financials. So I think, I don't know if you got the audit from last year, but they'll put a book together, and I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of that audit for last year.
Excellent.
Awesome.
One question.
Go ahead, Michael.
You referred to that the collaborative is going a little bit slower than you anticipate. Is that money wise or what's
Well, I think what's happened was that, at least on the financial side, they've now engaged the finance director for the Tiverton School Department to kind of take over the accounting for it. They did have, I think, a clerk that was in there doing it. So in fact, I emailed her today because there are some numbers that I'm looking for the audit. So I think that she's going to have a regular workload plus this. So I'm anticipating that, we should see something within the next few months, but as opposed to maybe having a kind of a complete dissolution towards the end of June. But I don't think they had the resources there because they had some turnover on the finance side. So.
So the numbers that you are waiting for, is that going to affect what you reported back as of June 30th in that?
It won't affect this year. It's going to affect next year. If you recall, next year's budget, FY24, we had $100,000 revenue line item in there, which is going to be a distribution that we're anticipating to come from the collaborative. So that 100,000. But I'm also anticipating, because we didn't take all the distribution we took the FY21 year, which isn't reported this year, was about 74,000. So there should be another FY22 distribution of accumulated surplus that we're anticipating. So I haven't seen some of those numbers, so that's why I'm kind of looking for those. So I emailed her today, see if I can get that information.
Slow going.
Email the collaborative.
Tiverton, the
Tiverton.
finance director. in Tiverton.
Okay.
So,
Fast solution, but a slow process.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. McNamee.
yeah,
We'll wait for public comments. Thank you. On to item 8, committee reports. Item 8.1, Ms. Hannah Ayat, the policy subcommittee report.
Thank you. We will have a meeting next Wednesday, September 20th at 3:30 PM. And then I can discuss the other policies that we are voting on tonight in a little bit.
Beautiful. Portsmouth High School Committee Liaison Report. That is I. The Portsmouth school year is underway. I believe tonight is their open house. Just from being on the school committee, first off, sports are starting, extracurricular activities are starting. I've spoken to several parents that have kids in, mostly freshmen, because I'm interested in that transition, and I've heard good things. There certainly is an adjustment period going from like 26 to 900 kids in this, 26 in your class to having 900 in the school. But nonetheless, the feedback that I've received, kids are excited to participate in the extracurricular activities. A lot of them have relationships with students from Portsmouth prior. So through sports and through these types of things, the arts. And then also I will share, if you are a parent at Portsmouth High School, the principal is very communicative. And if you are not receiving his emails, I encourage you to reach out, because I know that Carolyn will forward them along to myself, but he is very communicative. He is very active, accountable, and I think he's a great leadership fit over there. So I'm interested to see how this school year unfolds, but off the bat, it's very good in terms of his responses. Item 8.3, Wellness Committee Liaison Report, Ms. Sue Canane. That is you.
Imagine. So we have a meeting coming up on the 21st after school.
Beautiful.
So maybe there'll be something exciting next month.
All right.
Definitely.
And then last but certainly not least, he's done great work here. Item 8.4, the Town Recreation Committee Report, Mr. Michael Rocha.
There was actually no meeting in August.
Okay.
So hopefully they'll have one in September.
All right.
Nothing scheduled.
Beautiful.
Right.
All right, item 9.1, public input. I know we did have a hand. I do want to comment. We did receive a email via public input. I know that all the committee members read it, or I would at least like to give them the chance to read it. I'm under the notion of somewhat what Council President Mushin does. If you have a submission, you need to be here to read it. Otherwise, we will absolutely read your submission and we will submit it to the record. And that is what I would like to do tonight with the public comment that we received from via email. We can certainly elaborate on it when we get to that point. That being said, do we have any other public comments in the room tonight? Please stand and state your name and your address, please.
Thank you, Travis. Andy Ryan, 40 Patchwork Road. I have a couple things. I was looking at the wellness policy and I sent an email, and I do appreciate your comment about the warm weather. And it was at Roger Williams, one of our classrooms, AC wasn't working, but it was 87 in that classroom too. And it is so hard to teach when it's that hot.
Oh, yeah.
But I have one kid that seems to have trouble keeping her water bottle with her. We have been trying to work with her on that. But I noticed in the wellness policy, there's no policy in there about kids having access to water during class time. And so I think it would be beneficial for that to there actually be some formalization of that. And that way it can be reinforced a little bit more. I know one of our kids had, for some reason, has it in her head that she wasn't allowed to have a water bottle last year because of some event in the classroom or something like that. And I think that carried over. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I think there was some kid incident or something about metal water bottles or something. I have no idea what it was, but if you had a first grader or second grader right now, you probably can't, there was something that happened. And so in her head, she was not allowed to have water, I think, in the classroom, which, obviously wasn't the case, but I would just think that I was looking through the policy. I think it'd make a lot of sense that there be something really in there that reinforces that students should be requested to drink multiple times throughout the day when it's that hot, because she was coming home with her water bottle full because she would forget it, take it to lunch. And these, of course, are her issues, but we were actually concerned about her hydration levels because she was so dehydrated. And then I just wanted to confirm really quick with the budget numbers. So on an $8.23 million budget, you have about a 2% surplus at the end of the year. Is that?
Yeah, and that's off after the transfer to, we have a capital reserve fund that we've
So that was
transferred.
about 5% before that transfer.
Right.
So can you explain the capital reserve account a little bit on that?
So that's the money we're going to set aside to use for the capital improvements here, and underrides housing aid reimbursement requirements. You have to set that money aside in a separate fund and use those monies then to submit to RIE for reimbursement. So we'll get our standard housing aid, which I believe is 35%, and then there are bonus incentives that we'll get that have been extended now through 2024 for classroom improvements, health and safety. So we're anticipating that on a lot of the projects, we'll get an additional 10% reimbursement. And again, that winds up being a revolving fund so that we can then use that fund to do other improvements here at the school.
So thank you very much. So I was just recalling some of the conversations last year about it. And I just think, 1% to 2% is a pretty tight margin to run. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any other public comment? Roger? No? Beautiful. On to the action items. We are tabling action item 10.1. We will discuss that again in the month of October.
Yep.
And more than likely have a vote at that session.
Yep, and it'll be ready to go to ride to the second half.
Beautiful. Item 10.2. This is the wellness policy. So let's take a look at it. Does anyone have any questions about the amended wellness policy that's been submitted?
It is a thing of beauty.
I was going to say, do you ladies want to highlight some of the
This was more the wellness committee. We just kind of gave it the
final.
before the final,
Okay.
like look through.
This is Susan and.
Yeah, we passed it
This is a
around.
good
few
team
times.
effort then.
Yes, yes.
And this, we pushed the old, the former wellness policy through the WellSat dashboard that's free for school districts. And their wellness policies, and it highlighted, what was strong, what was weak, what state and federal regs and recommendations were not included, and we backfilled everything. There's a lot of green, there's a lot of emendations in there. We think we have a really good wellness policy. We'll know next week when Corinne Wetherill takes another look at it. She'll be very happy. And so, yeah, so there'll be a lot going on next week. Well, if you depends on this next vote.
Beautiful. I will consider a vote to approve the wellness policy as submitted.
Move to approve the wellness policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We will vote via roll call.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayotte,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha,
Aye.
Okay, item 10.3, let me just pull it up here. Personnel management system policy. And Hannah, do you want to elaborate on, I mean, there's only one green highlight
Yeah,
here.
the change to this one was just to acknowledge that we now have an in-house student services department that we need to also provide substitutes for, and this just reflects those rates and folds them into our existing policy.
Beautiful. I will consider a motion to vote to approve the personnel management systems policy.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Your roll call.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayotte,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha,
Aye.
All right, moving right along. Item 10.4, which is the Code of Conduct, Staff and Student Relationships Policy. And I remember this was a point of contention at the last meeting. We did receive an email in favor of not having a value, and it's the thought that counts, but to cap it. That was somebody that was not for the cap. That said, I do have a question for Lori. I know last time we spoke about, and I did not review the policy, but based on this, I would like to ask, the teachers, do they have something in their current policy or procedures right now where I believe you said that a gift of over $50, they would have to report?
That's state ethics.
So that's the Ethics State Commission, and that's all encompassing for all teachers within the state.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
That was 50. I think it's 50.
Sean?
We can account.
50 for school committee members.
Believe it is 50.
It's 50.
We can double check that.
I'm reasonably certain it's 50. You could soften that language. It is recommended that a gift be no more than $10. That sounds pretty shrill, so maybe soften.
25 or 75 in a calendar year is what I just found on the Ethics Committee website.
All right,
So 25 is the ethics commission cap.
75 over the course
75
of
in
the
a
year.
Over the course of the year. What about including that verbiage in this policy? Or do you feel that that is not applicable?
It is.
In all transparency, at the policy subcommittee meeting, I was in favor of not adding the language to, I think it's redundant to say the ethics commission's policy. We can definitely link it at the bottom there, like as a reference for, I think, but I'm comfortable with either. It's really whatever the whole committee decides to go with.
I did like Lori's suggestion, and I mean, knowing that we have the ethics guise of anything over $25, you would need to report, and then $75 in a school year. I think that if, we suggest that, this is between students and teachers, which it's kind of a gray area because during the holiday season, may possibly a teacher might receive a gift from a family of appreciation. And so I'm very much on that $10 would be too small for a once a year gift type thing. But for a student to be continually giving a teacher a gift, it's like one of those things where I don't, if you want to make something, a craft, bake cookies, whittle something out of wood, create something with your hands and present it to the teacher, great. But if you're like going out to get something of great monetary value, I know it might not be a problem in this school, but we do have a pretty high medium household income. We do have one of the highest home values in the state. And I know that this is absolutely a problem at private schools where when kids get in trouble or if a kid's trending on the air of maybe being on that guise of you might not pass, if they're continually given gifts, I know I have heard feedback from parents that that happens all the time. And I would like to that not be the issue in our school. I do believe in, there's a lot of talk about equity, and I sum it up as this: equity of opportunity, not equity of outcome. What does that mean? Equity of opportunity. Everybody gets to play the video game. Not everyone is going to score the same, right? So I think that putting a gift value on it, it kind of just becomes an issue of how comfortable the teacher is. I know we have the ethics piece in there, but if a kid was to be giving me a gift every day, I would feel uncomfortable about that. And not to say that that's happening. So I don't know. I'm open to hear what the other members of the committee have to say. But I know that this is certainly something that folks are passionate about. I wasn't aware that there was a gift giving issue. But I, certainly open to hear from people.
If I may, I don't think it was a gift giving issue. I think it was that particular policy was part of the collection of policies that Sean's law firm developed based on new norms or new issues and plaguing schools. And so I think just about every district in the state that you represent took this policy and made it their own. And so that language was there. The exchange of purchase gifts between staff members and students is discouraged. That was just about every district has that. And then
I think could it end there?
the committee went, subcommittee went a bit further. So
Because I think what the subcommittee was attempting to do, and they probably can answer this better than I, but was to acknowledge that gift giving could still occur even though there was a scourge, but that they wanted to tamp down on the value of that gift. That was the point. So they were trying to kind of meet both sides where it was, we're not saying don't do this. We're just strongly discouraging. At the
Right.
same time, we don't want, if you are going to engage in gift giving, we don't want it to reach that exorbitant amount. Teachers should be reminded that they are subject to the ethics code. And what Jonathan just pointed out is correct. I double checked that. Not that I didn't trust your ability to Google.
it wasn't.
It wasn't the other.
Yeah, that's why he's here.
50 for a long
And
time.
it is a single gift of 25 is the maximum value that one can give. And then and that's in any particular single gift, and 75 in the aggregate over the course of 1 year. So teachers need to be, public employees need to be aware of that
Right.
regardless of what this policy says and whatever you decide upon here tonight, they are still subject to the Rhode Island Ethics Code as public employees.
Okay.
And we do have that linked from the staff handbook, if I may, Chair.
You have what portion, the 20,
We link to various regs pertain to teachers.
so I am definitely not in favor of this, is if a gift is, the value is not to exceed $10. I think I made that known at the last meeting, and I still feel the same way. As far as the Ethics Commission, I think that's up on the teacher, whether they're supposed to report it or not. I think that's up to them.
They're
That's
supposed to report it ethically.
They're not supposed to
No.
report it. They're supposed to deny the gift. They're not supposed to accept a gift that exceeds
Touche.
$25. They're supposed to deny the gift. All of us are actually too, as public.
I didn't remember. Take
Yeah.
So would it be appropriate to, the verbiage says the exchange and purchase of gifts between staff members and students is discouraged. However, could we make note of the ethic?
I mean, you can.
I'm kind of asking, Sean, has every district included a monetary piece?
That second sentence is not included throughout different districts that I've represented. That first sentence is there. So it's really just a discussion among the committee members to decide what a majority of the committee is comfortable with in terms of putting an upper limit on it. Of course, not to exceed what is required under the ethics code.
If I may, Travis.
Please.
It seems like a majority of us are not in favor of the $10. So I'm going to suggest we amend it to read, the exchange of purchased gifts between staff members and students is discouraged. If a gift is to be given, the value is not to exceed Rhode Island State Ethics Commission
I love that.
regulations.
I'll live with that.
I love that.
That works.
Michael, are you agreeable to that?
Yes, because it becomes a variable at that point.
Yes.
So as if the laws change, then
And they might have, because we were under the impression it was 50, and Jonathan with his search, it's 75 and nothing more than 25 and incremental. And to speak to Hannah's point, ethically, if you receive a gift that's over 25, you're not even supposed to accept it.
Correct.
So there we are. And as politicians, you should just not accept gifts, just to be clear, even though apparently there's a number on that as well.
The staff handbook does.
So,
All right, so Hannah, will you be able to word this?
yeah, so I move to approve the amended version of the Code of Conduct Staff-Student Relationship Policy. Does that work, Sean?
What my recommendation is, that motion is fine to reflect a deletion of the second sentence in paragraph 2 and to replace it with the wording as, if a gift is to be given, the value is not to exceed the limits as established by the Ethics Commission's regulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Great work, everybody.
Yep, perfect.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We will vote via roll call.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayotte,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
all right.
Good work, everybody.
I
Item,
like it.
that's what it's
I
all about.
like it.
I think
10-5. We will take the in case of emergency policy. Let me just pull mine up here. Thank you for your patience. Oh, yes. Designation of responsibility in case of emergency. I know we spoke about this last time. In the event that the superintendent is incapacitated or unable to perform their duties, a certified school support services director shall assume the duties of the superintendent. And that is Mark Dufresne, correct? And we discussed last time that despite Principal McKinnon looking like he would be the next person in line, it's actually a totally different role, correct? Okay. So in the event that the certified student support services director is not available to assume the duties of the superintendent, the principal shall assume the duties of the superintendent. And then the school committee may also appoint an acting superintendent. So if Principal McKinnon was ever forced into that position, we would come together as a committee and I would think make a decision so we don't have too much on your plate. That said, Lori, we wish you a long, fruitful life. You will never be incapacitated or perish under your reign here at Wilbur
can't
McMahon
make
School.
any promises during ski season.
Do we have, is there any other questions or discussion that we would need to have regarding this policy?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Michael.
this was a question or a concern of mine at the last meeting was that there's nothing that states in here when we can appoint an acting superintendent. There's no guidelines as far as at what point are we going to do that. And I have a concern with that because this is open-ended. That's my first concern. Second concern is I kind of look at this and say, it's like, we're basically saying that we're going to, this is on same as and this is nothing, sorry, this is the same thing as an assistant superintendent, is the way that I look at this, that actually can step in and do this. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Can you clarify assistant principal,
Yeah, well,
clarify that? I don't understand.
So basically what this is saying is that, and I'm not gonna, we'll just take Lori out of the equation. We'll just say at the superintendent's position, whoever that may be, if that superintendent's not there and this other person steps in, that person's now taking the role of superintendent.
Right.
Yep.
And,
Correct.
Correct.
and this body, regardless of who sits in these chairs, is the one that hires the superintendent to follow the goals and the vision of this committee.
Correct.
We have no say in what that intern superintendent is going to do because we didn't hire that intern superintendent. So I have an issue with that. And because it also doesn't say how long that is going to be, is this for a week? Is this for a month? Is this for 3 days? And what is the difference between the role that, and again, I'll take the current people out of here, I'll say the principal's position. What's the difference between the principal's position and the superintendent's position in that capacity? I understand that the principal oversees the day-to-day operations compared to what the superintendent's position does. But what's the difference between the principal and the superintendent in that role? If you were to, not you, if the superintendent was not able to perform the duties? So what's the difference on that?
Well, you wouldn't want to take the principal offline. He doesn't have an assistant. And so someone would have to step in for him. And so the last thing a school committee would want to do is take the only principal, the only building administrator offline and do both things. I took you to the superintendent dashboard, and that's not something that a principal has navigated. Even a principal with 30 years as an administrator like Jack. And so it's a totally different, it's a 3,000-foot view as opposed to the boots on the ground workflow that is his morning, noon, and night. So it's a very different position altogether. And I could never sanction, and I hope you wouldn't either, taking him offline and putting him in that position if I'm in a coma from a ski accident. But definitely Mark Dufresne, who is a district administrator, his office is in the suite where my office is, near HR, near IT, near John McNamee when he comes on a Wednesday. And, even though we're in the same building, and so sometimes people will see me as a co-principal, the position is so far from that. Wish I had known that. No, just kidding. It's so far from that. Like I said, it's that 3,000-foot view, and it's a very unique position. It's an enjoyable one and satisfying one, challenging and mixture of successes and failures, but it is very different from the principal's position.
Michael, to speak to your timeline, incapacitated, I had to look it up because I'm like, to what degree? A lack of physical or mental cognitive ability that results in a person's inability to manage their own personal care, property, and finances. So we're talking like an end of days scenario.
We're talking a coma.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this isn't like an injury where she's like, I broke my arm, have to have a surgery. I got to take, I'm out a couple weeks or whatever. This is like absolutely, we're doing prayer vigils,
Yeah, emergency.
Emergency. Like I said, it doesn't even say in the case of an emergency is if the superintendent is incapacitated. And if we're going by that definition, it is
Yeah.
a really slippery slope in terms of the life of the person at hand. This isn't something like, hey, they missed a couple days or they have to go out on leave for a surgery. Or this is an extenuating circumstance. And to speak to their points, Jack said last time that it's not his role to be the superintendent. And he's looking at me right now going, no, it's not.
No part of that.
So,
Excel grant, no, the federal grant.
and go ahead, Hannah, please.
Also I think we're getting hung up on the person behind the role. Also, this is meant to serve perpetually for whoever fills this role or any of these roles listed here, as well as we don't know in what way a person could be incapacitated or unable to perform their duties. So we can't really specify that as well. But if you look at our bylaws, there is a whole article in there that outlays the whole superintendent roles, responsibilities. It is their job to ensure the district is enforcing the policies that we set. So in that case, I feel like we are secure in whichever one of these people takes over for whoever the superintendent is. It is their job to follow through on our policies that we set. I would assume they would also have access to the goals that we will hopefully approve in the coming month, that they would try to work with those as well. And then obviously, if it became a situation where we have someone filling in, we need to fill a position so that it's not two people doing three people's jobs. It's three people again. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Did you want an assistant superintendent, did you say?
No, I don't.
Oh, I'm just,
No, I
was like, I mean,
no,
I didn't think you meant that, but.
No, I don't want that. And I want to see some sort of timeline because.
I think it's unrealistic.
Why is that?
Because we don't know
You don't know what the
what the
emergency is.
incapacitated is. We don't know. This is all hypotheticals. It's really meant to just, and this is also meant to be temporary. Obviously, if Lori, like I just said, if Lori is out for weeks and weeks and weeks, she's never coming back. We need Mark to be in his position as student support services director. So I would assume in that case, we call an emergency meeting. The chair has power to do that, empowered in our bylaws. All of this is laid out in our other policies. So this one doesn't need to have it all laid out.
So I'll go back to the according to this, is that if the director can't fill the duties and the principal, and I'm summarizing, if the director can't fill the duties and the principal does it. Now, we've just heard from the superintendent where you don't want to pull a principal offline to do that. So again, there's nothing in here stating that at what point do we appoint an acting superintendent? And there's not, because it's at that point, it's acting, it's only temporary. But it gives whoever sits in these seats from now into the future, it gives them a guideline of saying, listen, after 30 days or after, 20 days, I mean, like Travis said, we're not talking 1 or 2 days or a week. I'm not looking at it from that experience. But the thing is that if it's so important not to pull a principal offline, and if you're this other director that you're proposing to do it can't do that job, what do we do in the meantime, influx for 30 days? I mean,
We call an emergency meeting as
Right.
empowered by the chair, by our bylaws. I really think that all of your concerns are laid out in the rest of our policies. Every single one of our policies doesn't have to say every single one of our policies.
Correct. If this was to occur, Michael, and we have communication with Lori's next of kin to say, listen, it's gonna be 30 days, she's probably not gonna ever come back, and we're calling an emergency meeting.
Right.
If they're like, hey, she's on the mend, do you want to talk to her? Well, then we're not gonna call an emergency meeting. I really think it's the scenario that presents. And to speak to Hannah's point, we do have the bylaws in place to protect us should this extenuating circumstance ever come to light, although we pray it never does. Got to be tough to talk with all this morbidity talk with her. Please, miss, just state your name and your address for the record.
Lindsay Pinio, 469 Long Highway. My question about this issue is, how can one be sure that the Director of Student Support Services meets the qualifications and the knowledge base to fill in temporarily for the superintendent? That's not clear to me.
Excellent question.
And
Penny.
the second part of that is, does the Director of Student Support Services, pardon me for not knowing this.
No, this is great.
Have a full-time position here or a part-time position here?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Lori, would you like to answer both of those? I know that you touched on it last week, but just to bring everybody up to speed on Mark's role and what that means.
Thank you so much for your interest. I'm part-time, and the other district cert holding personnel, student support services, he's also part-time. And so he's 3 days a week, I'm 3 days a week. And he is the only other staff member, including Wilbur McMahon and central admin, who, well, and I'm sorry, and John McNamee, he does hold he's saying, don't you dare name me.
I was gonna say, hey, this is right.
I did tell him sometimes it is the business manager. I have been in districts where the business manager was the acting superintendent. He kicked me really hard when I said that, but so the person doesn't need to have a superintendent certification, but must have a district level cert. Be employed, could have a district level cert and be, an employee of a school, sometimes an assistant principal or something like that. But it's better if the person has a district cert and works in central administration. And then there's no disruption. All of the operations are still happening there. No one has to leave a space and come to a space, vacate a space. None of it is ideal. And in districts with an assistant superintendent, larger districts, that person moves right in. It's kind of like this, it's sort of, a chain. But he is absolutely qualified, works in many of the dashboards I do, knows his way around some of the federal grants that I administer, IDEA Part A, Part B, Title I, that's part of student support services as well. So a lot of our processes do sort of overlap. And he does have that high level view, not boots on the ground, arrival, dismissal, and all the nuts and bolts. So that particular, whoever is in that position or my position, 2 district certs, really do meld in the case of, a critical event, critical emergency.
You guys don't travel together, do you? You and Mark, you guys got to stay separate, like the president and vice president. You can't have this kind of scenario arise where we're down to Jack, who doesn't hold the cert. Got to protect ourselves in the
He's
day.
not making any eye contact.
Is there any other discussion or questions regarding the Sean, please?
Can I just make one suggestion?
Suggestion? What's going on tonight?
I don't know.
One suggestion for the committee to consider, kind of jumping off of Mike's comments relative to a timeline. The committee may want to consider just simply adding a sentence that says, if the superintendent is to be incapacitated or unable to perform their duties for a time period greater than 30 days, the school committee shall meet to discuss an appointment of an acting superintendent. Doesn't require the school committee appoint an acting superintendent at that time, but at least it won't necessarily be left up to the discretion of the chair to call a meeting. It will be solidified in policy that you at least have the discussion. You guys meet for 5 minutes and say, she's coming back in 5 days. We don't need to do anything. Or nope, this looks like it's going to be a serious issue. And we might need to take some further action.
Sean, love the recommendation. Where would
Sounds
you
great.
include it in this verbiage? And
I would just tack it on to the end, the last sentence. It might not be the most beautiful paragraph that you want to submit to some.
so the last sentence,
Writing.
the school committee may also appointing acting, that last sentence?
Add it.
Just add it right at the end of the
Sentence
paragraph.
After that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Do that right now.
What was it?
Jen can do that in real time.
All right, perfect. This way somebody can read that aloud and
Yeah, just give me 1 minute to.
no problem, no problem.
I would support his
Yeah.
recommendation. I think the other part that we got to think of here is that we're all talking right now where there's not an issue. And then when there is an issue, there's a lot of uncertainties that go on. And this way, it just says, look, it spells out what we're gonna do at what point.
Correct.
Whether we do something or whether we don't do something, but it just doesn't leave us open-ended and then we're not like,
That's fine.
I don't know what's going on.
That's fine. I will tell you right now, if I sit in this seat and this was to ever occur, we would absolutely be meeting as soon as possible once we receive the news. But I love that verbiage is included. Go ahead.
Say, if I may, hypothetically, if it was just down to say me and Carolyn and John McNamee, we would absolutely be coming to you at that point, asking you to do something if you hadn't. After 30 days, I could make that bet.
Megan. No, we would absolutely act adequately and accordingly to ensure that we can protect the outcomes for everybody involved, all the stakeholders.
Sorry, especially this day and age. Safety and so forth.
Ms. Pinio, Michael, Sean, Lori, thank you. Collectively. This is how it's supposed to be. Is that what?
So she's still working on trying to edit it. I think we could just do like the other policy where we had a verbal recognition of the changes. So we would just need a motion from a committee member to amend the policy with all the corrections here, but to also add an additional sentence at the end of the paragraph that will read, if the superintendent is known to be incapacitated and or unable to perform their duties for greater than 30 days, the school committee shall meet within 30 days to discuss the appointment of an acting superintendent.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
It's all
We
good.
will vote via roll call.
We got it.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayat,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
All right.
Excellent work, everyone.
You can read my handwriting, if not, I can email you something.
Item 10.6. Any member requests for information from administration or legal counsel?
Yes.
Go ahead, Michael. I also have a request, but go ahead.
Last month, my question last month when it wasn't on the agenda was to ask, I guess this goes back to Jonathan. We had spoke about when parents come back to school and they have to do the back to school packet every year. I know you have a sign on thing now where they can go on. Oh, shoot, sorry. It's only a request. We can't talk about it, right?
Yeah, I would just make the request for the information. And if you need to give a little bit of an explainer so he knows what you're talking about, that's fine.
All right, so basically, I just want to know, we had talked previously about where that information would be filled in for the parents so that when they come back, they don't have to, some parents have 2 and 3 kids in a school system. That's 2 and 3 forms that they got to fill out. That's very detailed. So I'll stop at that. So I don't want to get into not having been on the agenda. So I guess my question is where we're at with that would be my follow-up. If you would follow up with us I would ask that be at the next meeting. The second thing I would ask for is that there's a flyer that just went out from Nurse Dunn, and it referenced the RIDO regulations. If I could just have a copy of those regulations that was referenced in that flyer. I already have the memo that was sent out on August 24th from RIDO, but I just wanted the copy of the regulations, please.
Thank you. I just have one, actually 2 things. One, can we ensure that all teachers have access to Parent Square? I'm hearing from some that they don't get the messages or they can't respond to it. So if we could just get clarity.
Parents can't get it or teachers?
I've heard a teacher can't get it.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure everybody has the same opportunities, regardless of grade level. Parent Square is where we're going to be communicating, and I feel like it's great. I love getting the updates, and it's the way. So I want to just make sure every teacher has access to it. If there's some sort of firewall or their email doesn't, whatever the case is, that would be one. And then 2, and I know we've spoken, do we have a policy in place as to when parents would be informed, like, as to what the school day looks like? Teachers, these forms, can we get them before school is all I'm asking. In the, week before, 2 weeks before, July 1st, I don't know, but do we have a policy in place to inform the parents as to who the teachers will be and how the scheduling will work and what day one looks like before they arrive? That's all. And then otherwise, without any further ado, I will consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, go ahead. Did you?
That discussed at the next meeting.
Yeah, it was just a request. Please. Thank you. I have a so moved on the adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Be a roll call?
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Ayat,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez, Susan King,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. September 13th.